All right, guys, thank you for tuning in today. We are coming live today, this beautiful Sunday morning or actually technically Sunday at noon, or depending on where you are in this world, with Coach Brett, our longevity specialist. And Brett is going to be talking about optimizing your sleep patterns and your sleep schedule, and really how it correlates to what we are all doing, which is recompositioning our body. So in this training, we're going to spend a couple of minutes really talking about some of those tips and techniques to really maximize sleep. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Coach Brett. So Mr. Brett, thanks for hosting this important topic of conversation. So I'll go ahead and let you just take over from here on.
Okay, well, thank you, Will. Thank you for the introduction. And hi, everyone. Today, I'm going to discuss one of our pillars of longevity, which is sleep. Adequate amounts of and quality sleep are vital to our health span and our longevity. In comparison to diet and exercise, which have historically been thought of the primary pillars of longevity, it's increasingly understood that sleep is the foundation on which the other pillars sit. In addition, we will learn that sleep plays an important role in our body recomposition as well. So I've organized the discussion into three sections. First, what is the purpose of sleep, and how does our body regulate our wakefulness and our sleepiness? And then next, what are the things that are most likely to disrupt good quality sleep? And then finally, we'll spend some good time on what are considered the non-negotiables or the best practices of optimal sleep. My presentation is based on my readings from the National Academy of Sports Medicine, as well as the groundbreaking longevity resource called Lifespan, which is a book written by Mr. Tony Robbins in consult with leading authorities in medical, clinical, and academic research. And from watching several podcasts from two of my most trusted sources on this topic, Professor Andrew Huberman, who's a PhD of neuroscience at Stanford University, and Dr. Matt Walker, who's also a PhD neurophysiology, considered one of the best authorities in the world on sleep. He is a professor at UC Berkeley and directs the Center for Human Sleep Science to investigate the role of sleep in human health and disease. Sleep is a really fascinating and critical topic to explore, so let's get started. In section 1, let's discuss why we need sleep and how the body regulates wakefulness and sleep. The Sleep Foundation states that adults need to strive for 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep, which is defined by three things. 1, falling asleep after getting into bed within 30 minutes or less. 2, 20 minutes or less of wakefulness during the night. And then 3, feeling rested, restored, and energized upon waking. Insomnia is when you have trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, or getting good quality sleep, even if you have the time and the right environment to sleep well. It needs to be evaluated by a sleep clinic and could be related to issues like sleep apnea or restless leg syndrome, just as a couple of examples. Dr. Walker states that his tips and ideas discussed today won't address insomnia, so it's more so for people who occasionally sleep poorly and want to improve on that. So according to Harvard University, a lead theory as to why we need sleep is referred to as the restorative theory. This states that sleep provides the body with an opportunity to repair and rejuvenate, which is supported with evidence observed such as muscle growth, tissue repair, protein synthesis, and hormone release, all seen during the sleep cycle. Interestingly, science has shown that testosterone, our tissue building hormone, is at its lowest level at around 8 p.m., and it rises throughout the sleep cycles to peak at 8 a.m. The body also performs these essential functions as we sleep. 1, cardiovascular wellness. So in particular, our heart rate and our blood pressure slow down as we sleep, which promotes repair and wellness. Number 2, immune system strengthening. So here the body creates chemical defenses during sleep to help us fight infections and chronic inflammation. Number 3, appetite and metabolism regulation. So here sleep balances our hunger and our satiety or feeling full hormones, in addition to blood sugar and insulin levels. And then 4, memory maintenance. So during sleep, our brain cells are allowed some downtime to rest the mitochondria, our energy cells, clear the cellular space, recycle membranes, and do what's called cellular housekeeping. So next, let's cover how the body and the brain fosters wakefulness and sleepiness. So first, it's important to know that sleep and wakefulness are tethered together. And what does that mean? That means that what we do in our wakeful hours affects our sleep. So in addition, there are two biological mechanisms that regulate alertness and sleep. The first process to talk about is referred to as the sleep-wake homeostasis, also known as the homeostatic sleep drive. And this influences what's called our sleep hunger. So this chemical clears out in the morning and then subsequently builds up all day. And so it starts out very low and builds up during our waking hours, making us increasingly sleepy as the night progresses. In case you recognize the word adenosine, that's what we're talking about. It's the same chemical that's in the compound called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is our body's energy currency. ATP is required for muscle contractions when we're lifting weights. So anyway, sleepiness stores of adenosine are boosted by our activity such as exercise or the use of ATP during the day. This is why exercise is a key component of good sleep routines. Exercise boosts sleep efficiency and quality. So we're going to dive deeper into the best exercise tips for getting better sleep in section 3. The second biological mechanism that regulates awake and sleep is our circadian rhythm, also known as our 24-hour internal clock. The circadian clock determines when we want to be asleep and when we want to be awake. A vital element to our wake-sleep cycle is sunlight. When you wake up and open your eyes and you get light in your eyes, this does two things. It activates our master clock, and then it releases a hormone and sets a 12-hour timer to release another hormone. The master clock is also called our suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN, and it sits behind our eyes and above our mouth in the hypothalamus of the brain. The SCN connects to every cell in the body. Two of its primary functions are to communicate with the adrenal gland, which is responsible for secreting cortisol, our alert hormone, and putting that 12-hour timer on our pineal gland, which secretes the hormone called melatonin, which is our sleepiness hormone. A healthy rise in cortisol makes you want to move. It makes you wake up, increases your heart rate, tenses your muscles, etc. Dr. Huberman states that safe, non-direct exposure to sunlight in our eyes, more so in the atmosphere, is by far the best method to optimize the circadian clock and our wake-sleep cycle. And this is a profound statement, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more here. He states that light exposure is 1,000 to 10,000 times more effective than exercise in improving the sleep and wakefulness cycles. He also notes that viewing sunlight through a window is 50% less effective than actually being exposed in an outside environment. He recommends viewing early day light as well as evening or sunset light, and this has the effect of signaling that it's the beginning and the end of our day to our body. Basically, every cell needs light information, and we only get this through our eyes. And here are the kind of other light recommendations, just to go through them real quickly from Andrew regarding light and sleepiness effect. Get a lot of light in the morning and at sunset. Get as little as possible after 8 p.m. And then be mindful in limiting your smartphone and TV backlighting at least 30 minutes before bed. And then really, you need to have no light between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. So the advice is to dim your lights in your house or your room after 8 p.m. And then we'll get into this more, but create a cool, dark, quiet environment for your sleep. The underlying theme with all of this sleep advice that we're going to go through is consistent regularity of routines. So let's just reiterate what we said here about light and dark exposure. So light and dark exposure are information received and used by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, our master GPS clock behind our eyes. And that then signals the release of two hormones, cortisol, which is our alert hormone, and melatonin, which is our sleep hormone. So it really is has a lot to do with the light cycles. So in section 2, let's quickly cover the top list of things that influence poor sleep quality. They include number 1, alcohol, and we covered this extensively in our dry January Zoom call, so I really won't go into that too much. Caffeine, here generally we need to stop the intake after morning. And this really does vary by person, but Dr. Twyman, who is the cardiologist that we interviewed, did remind us that there's a 12-hour half-life with caffeine, so it's worth about 50% of its initial value after 12 hours. So that's why that stopping in the morning is kind of a good idea there. Number 3 reason for poor sleep would be stress and anxiety. So this could include things, concerns about work or school, your health, your finances, or even events like divorce, job loss, etc. Number 4 would be having an uncomfortable bed or pillow. Number 5 would be a non-optimal sleep environment, meaning there's too much light, it's too noisy, or the temperature is too high. And then number 6 is there's some lifestyle issues that will get in our way from time to time, like travel, jet lag, or shift work. And this can mess with our circadian clock as well. But as you can kind of think about this list, some of these are completely under our control, and some might be a little bit more persistent. Now let's spend most of our time moving into section 3 and talk about the best practices to optimize your sleep. And these are taken from Doctors Huberman and Walker, the preeminent experts. Dr. Walker lists these conventional ideas first. First and foremost is regularity of routine. The super chiasmatic nucleus thrives on consistent, regular schedule. Number 2 is temperature. So this is a really interesting one. The brain and the body need to cool about 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit in order to fall asleep and stay asleep. So they suggest that if you can manage an ambient temperature of 65 degrees Fahrenheit for your sleep environment, that's going to be considered ideal. It's also encouraged to take a hot bath or a shower before bed. And this might seem counterintuitive, but what this does is this rushes the blood to the surface of the skin, which aids in reducing your core body temperature. Science shows that this can help you fall asleep 25% faster. And I know a lot of people do this too, and sometimes I do, and that is it's a good idea to wear socks to bed. And here too, what's going to happen is warming the extremities like your hand or your feet will drop the body's core temperature as well, which is the goal of getting into good quality sleep. Number 3 on Dr. Walker's list is darkness. So here we want to avoid our screens. We also do not want to watch TV in bed. This trains your brain that bed is for TV time and entertainment, not for unwinding and for sleep. And then also in the last hour before bed, dim all your lights. So there too, you're just trying to govern the information that your eyes are seeing and how it's dictating your, your clock. So darkness encourages melatonin hormone release is the main point to be made there. Okay, so here's a note I wanted to make sure I hit. So regarding melatonin supplements, I know several people that take them from time to time, and some people swear by them. And some people might find these helpful. And I guess this is a good point to bring up regarding all of our sleep ideas. It's kind of like food. You have to find out what works for you. There are definitely some core things to avoid and to do, but there's some things that are going to be better for you, better for another person. But regarding melatonin, I wanted to bring this point up. And Huberman and Walker both advise against melatonin supplements. This is a hormone, and over-the-counter melatonin is not very highly regulated. And they've done a lot of testing to show that the amount of melatonin can vary dramatically from as little as 15% of what's listed on the bottle to more than 400 times what's listed on the bottle. So, and then furthermore, the more important point they want to make regarding melatonin is that the rhythms of your cortisol and your melatonin need no external influence. And then Dr. Walker did want to come up with a few unconventional ideas, which I think are quite interesting. So that's why I want to share them with you. The first one is to have a wind down routine. So here the ideas are customizable to your taste, and they may include things like stretching, reading, a warm bath, maybe meditation. There's some yoga techniques that help with relaxation, but consider that sleep is not a light switch. It is more like landing an airplane. You need a transition period to get off to sleep. Number 2 is that everyone is different in this regard, and this regards naps. And Dr. Huberman greatly benefits from them. Dr. Walker doesn't really think they're that great for him. But if you do nap, try and limit it to 20 to 60 minutes and don't try and do too much napping after the early afternoon, like the 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock time frame. And they say it's akin to snacking before a meal. So you're going to spoil your sleep routine if you nap too late in the day. I thought this was interesting, and I've tried this the last couple nights, and that is move your clock face from your view. So knowing that it's 3:25 a.m. in the morning doesn't do us any favors regarding our sleep, according to the doctors. And then I thought this was good too. I've not tried this yet, and maybe you guys have. And that is write down all of your concerns, ideas, 1 to 2 hours before sleep. Dr. Walker equates it to like closing the tabs on your computer browser. Testing shows also that there's a 50% improvement in sleep quality by unloading these worries off of your brain onto paper. And then finally, I did want to circle back on exercise and nutrition in particular, and the best ideas to incorporate for optimal sleep and to avoid problems. So the first one to talk about is you need to exercise at least 30 minutes a day. And I don't mean go to the gym that often. I'm just talking about something as simple as taking a walk. Especially if you can fit it in at sunrise or sunset in the nice weather. Number two, use a consistent timing. This is fairly key across all the sleep topics, but generally you should find what works for you. One note to talk about regarding cardio late at night, it's advised to not do too much intense exercise too late in the evening, but I think moderate intensity exercise is just fine at just about any hour in regards to benefiting you on your sleep. Number three, getting regular sleep improves your workouts. And this is really kind of a circular thing. So exercise helps you sleep and sleep helps you exercise. So that's kind of an obvious or common sense thing to say out loud, but there it is. And then the fourth thing to offer to you guys is you might benefit from a fitness tracker. This might help you monitor your data and trends and could give you valuable data on your sleep cycle. Regarding food and sleep, I heard some really interesting things from Dr. Walker on this one. He made some important notes on sleep quality and weight management. First, underslept people, meaning those that are sleeping poorly or not enough, will be influenced by hormone changes to eat more food. If you're consistently sleeping 5 hours or less, you're going to see up to an 18% increase in your leptin hormone. And again, this is the hormone that governs our satiety or our feeling of feeling full. And you're also going to see another hormone called ghrelin, which is going to increase up to 28%. And this hormone revs up our hunger sensation. And then finally, there's a nervous system receptor called cannabinoids, I hope I said that right, that could drive your hunger up as much as 30%, given a big lack of sleep. So all of this to say, these things could come together and result in a desire for up to 300 to 400 extra calories per day. And they also drive us towards more unhealthy snacks such as fat, salt, and bad carbs. So this is all due to the lack of sleep signaling to the brain that we are in starvation mode. And then secondly, for those that are in a caloric deficit while undersleeping, something not very good happens, and that is we're at risk of 60% of our weight loss coming from muscle rather than fat. So your body will lose what it wants to keep and keep what you want it to lose. And this is due to the rising hormone of cortisol, our stress hormone or our alert hormone. And this creates fat within food storage versus muscle. So in conclusion, sleep is an incredibly potent factor in our longevity. People who are chronically sleep deprived are more likely to be overweight, have strokes, cardiovascular disease, infections, and even certain cancers. For my quote today, I found something that Mr. Tom Brady stated, and you can choose to love him or hate him, but he has achieved elite human performance and is the only NFL quarterback to win a Super Bowl in 3 different decades. And he is quoted to state that proper sleep helped me get to where I am today as an athlete and is something I continue to rely on every day. So anyway, that concludes my prepared comments, and I'll transition back to Will if you want to add in some comments or clarifications for us.
Yeah, fantastic job, Brett. There's a lot of You just shared a lot of golden nuggets of information as to the importance of sleep. And I really appreciate you getting into the science behind it as well. It's not just one of those, hey, you just need better sleep. So thanks for touching on all those key points. So from my perspective of things, and this is something I've read a book called Why Do We Sleep? And it really helped me understand that sleeping is a biological necessity. And we already know this. There's been, I think, 50 plus, maybe 60 plus years of understanding sleep studies and really understanding like the value that sleep has for us. We live in a caffeinated world. We live in a world of stimulants, and not even just when I say caffeinated, that's just a sort of a general broad stroke of we live in this world where we're constantly stimulated. Caffeine, alcohol, even sort of supplements that cause spikes in energy, pre-workouts. And we've kind of gotten to this like hustle and grind culture where we just do so much. And that there's value in getting things done. But when it compromises the biological necessity of sleep, then we start to experience a whole host of negative ramifications, and correlating directly to our health from a physical, body recomposition standpoint, like you mentioned. If we're getting generally under 6 hours of sleep consistently each and every night, we are going to have a much harder time losing fat. We're going to have a much harder time building muscle. Our cortisol hormone is going to spike up, which causes a lot of negative hosts as well, such as blood sugar spiking, blood pressure issues, heart rate issues, and these are things that are essential for our goals from a physical health spectrum. So in essence, you can't outwork bad sleep patterns. And there's a couple of tips that for me in particular, I think most people at some point in time have struggled with consistent sleep. For me, I've been in situations where I was getting less than 4 or 5 hours of sleep consistently. And there's a couple of things that I've been able to implement that have been pretty efficient strategies. Some of them are, kind of like what you've discussed as well, but I wrote down 5 key distinctions that I've been able to implement that may correspond with what you've mentioned as well. So to get a little tactical, I know you touched on this, but for what I aim to do, I aim to go to sleep at the same time every single night, even on the weekends. It's okay every once in a while to, like push it back an hour if you're going out, hanging out with friends or doing something for the evening. But I always aim to go to sleep around 10 to 10:30 p.m. every single night. I also set an alarm. This is a great trigger for a lot of people who might have a difficult time being consistent for many reasons. I set an alarm at 9:30, and the 9:30 p.m. alarm goes off my phone, and it says shut off devices. So my aim is to no longer look at screens after 9:30. It allows me a 30-minute transition to detach from the screens, not look at any computers, any television, and allow myself to just unwind without having to, be stimulated by the light coming from the screen. I personally don't drink alcohol, so that's usually not an issue. But if I were to, I would avoid drinking alcohol about 3 hours before bed. Similarly, like you mentioned, avoiding caffeine after the morning is going to be optimal. We think we need caffeine, but we really don't. So drinking caffeine after 12 noon is not a necessity. So we want to minimize the stimulants towards the later part of the day. And then, like I mentioned, I kind of piggybacked on here with the no screens after 30 minutes before bed. These are just some strategies that I've been able to implement. It doesn't take a lot of time and energy. It's just about consistently doing it and allowing yourself a little bit more time each like you mentioned, it's like, was the analogy used? Landing a plane. It takes time. This is not something that you're going to be able to execute and be efficient with right away. This does take a little bit of time. But I think the biggest distinction is you have to understand that if you don't get your sleep under control, you're going to cap out with your ability to lose fat, build muscle, and really live a healthier lifestyle. And I know you even touched on, what happens when we are in that deep restorative sleep. We improve our immune system. We are able to be more cognitively coherent, when we wake up. We're able to build more muscle. We're able to mitigate fat loss by increasing our metabolism. So there's no arguing the value of sleep. If you have poor sleep, it's something that we have to get control over right away. We have to implement an efficient and effective strategy. Some of those tips that I just gave, and obviously the science that Brett explained, is going to be an extremely important thing for you guys to really wrap your mind around and execute a plan Be patient with yourself. This is not something that you're just going to fix like that. Sometimes it takes days and or weeks. But if you implement the right strategy and you are consistent with it, it can be a complete game changer. It can improve your lifespan. It can improve your health span. It can improve your blood panel. It can improve your muscle endurance and strength. It can improve your fat loss and overall energy and endurance. It can minimize your chances of cardiovascular disease, cancers. There's pretty much everything from a physical health standpoint. So again, my point is it's important to make sure that you are understanding the value of sleep. And if you're not sleeping a quality minimum 6 hours, I would highly encourage you to get 7, 8 hours. If you're not getting at least those 6 though, then you might want to take a look at what can I start to incorporate within my lifestyle to maximize my sleep quality. So that's all I got. Brett, do you have any closing words?
No, that's really good, Will. That book you read, I believe, is from Dr. Matt Walker, who's the guy I listened to on my podcast. So,
That's right. It was Walker.
yes,
Yeah,
sir. No,
fantastic.
that's amazing. So, very good.
And hey, guys, I just wanted to jump in with a quick comment. One of the things that I sometimes face being on the diet is the kind of conundrum of if you're hungry right before bed, do you kind of push through the night being hungry and get kind of a lower quality sleep, or do you eat something? So I found that having like a tablespoon of, say, peanut butter to kind of, stave off my hunger really helps me get a better quality night's sleep instead of saying, you know what, I'm just going to go to bed hungry and try to push through, because I just don't see, I don't think anyone sleeps well when they're hungry.
Yeah, that's a great point. And without a doubt, I mean, we never want to go to sleep feeling hungry, because then, I mean, I've been there. I think we've all been there, and wake up throughout the middle of the night, wake up starving. So yeah, there's definitely a component of nutrition in maximizing sleep. But that's a great distinction, Lester. And yeah, I mean, a small teaspoon or tablespoon of peanut butter can sometimes satiate us enough to allow us to sleep well through the night. Appreciate the distinction. Okay, so that about wraps it up. Brett, thank you for doing this live training, and we'll go ahead and we'll catch you guys next time.